By May of 1967, the OFD2 streamway had been explored, but further progress was barred by the top waterfall. A team of SWCC cavers, including Paddy O'Reilly, used maypoles to access an inlet. This video tells some of the story of what happened in the following weeks, and is told by Paddy during a rare visit back to the cave in December 2014.
Wow, there's a track down here.
You can still see the shape of some of the ripples in the mud.
Initially we just named things that we felt we had to name so we could refer to them. I mean, the trident was fairly obvious.
Barani Junction and the Post Gate were significant ones at that time. And you remember there was a great big stile here as well, which is sadly gone.
Yeah, we used to go straight across that little tube and clamber down the arete, right? Also, if my memory is correct, it's just somewhere up above us.
Yeah, it is. That's right. Yeah.
Well, I've done something new today.
So you never usually came this way?
No, we just climbed the arete. A little bit of that white stuff.
But do they used to be more of it?
Oh God, yeah.
And this is stuff grass, yeah. That's fine. Thanks. Okay, thank you very much. Fantastic. With the fly.
This is the spot.
It goes, right? Definitely goes,
You know, in hindsight, it seemed terribly narrow. And of course, all the scallops really jagged,
So
rough edges. Oh man.
The friction was very good then.
I mean, I came out with a shredded wetsuit. Yeah, they're coming in from the roof effectively, as far as we were concerned. Little dribbles and small inlets and so on. And this one looked particularly appealing. I think probably the bigger of the ones up here. So we hauled the maypoles up and left them there for the following weekend. And if my memory is correct, it was Colin, myself, and Pete Ogden who came in here. I'll have to check my logbook on that, but we climbed the inlet, the maypole itself, and I was first off, and straight into that very narrow canyon with all the white stuff at the bottom. And there were lots of little blocks in the way, so it was really awkward to get off the ladder, and it was really awkward to... and the other stayed below until I could see if it actually was passable. And I think we thought at that time, this is pretty grungy, this is not what we expected. And we just fought our way along it, trying to get round those awkward angles and the loose boulders and the slippery mud, and it was quite tight at various places. And eventually it just got really tight and awkward. So Colin was the one who started climbing upwards in the rift. And we were getting a bit tired, so he kept saying, "Come on, pal, it's time to turn around, it's time to go, we'll come back another day." And he said, "Hang on a minute, boys," he said, "I can see the roof up here." And we said, "Oh, okay, all right." So we scrambled up beside him and popped our heads up, and I have this mental picture, which doesn't quite fit what I'm looking at right now, of literally popping your head up and suddenly going, "Oh, there's a passage here." And we came up and we just did a little bit. We went down there, of course that seemed big, and then we went around and we saw big passages and said, "Oh, all right, let's keep quiet about this. No, let's tell everybody about this." So come back out and came back the following week and pushed off down towards Selenite. You know, time is terrible. It might have even been on the same day that we went down Selenite, but that was the first direction we took, was off in that direction. And then it was only on the bigger trip later on that we actually went over towards Silurius and found where this water was coming from. So that's it. This is the spot.
Yeah, this is where it all happened. You try against that wall. Yeah.
Absolutely no problem.
So somebody fell down there?
Yeah.
Nobody fell down there.
Remember when we came up from that horrible rift leading to the Maypole and popped our heads up, and Colin was talking about, yeah, there's lots of room. Those passages are actually quite unprepossessing. They're small, they're narrow, They're a network and it was just mud and the odd occasional bit of flowstone. Eventually we made our way around here, and this was actually the first direction we headed. We had no idea of the delights that lay in the other direction. We headed down this way, and this was really the first thing that we saw that we went, wow. As you listen, you can hear an echo, even the voice is echoing, and as you move further down this passage, unless I'm mistaken, you eventually come to the stream, and you can hear the rumble of the stream in the distance. The floor was tiny little sparklies, little crystals just resting on it, and some of it's still preserved quite well, but it still has the same feel. This is a magic tunnel.
Yeah, it is.
And if you remember, at that time, there were all the huge discoveries in Danarogo. And we were beginning to find stuff with pretty formations as well. Yeah, I was just looking that some of the stalactites have been broken.
It was the shattered pillar, and now on the survey it is there as the shattered pillar.
I have a feeling we probably didn't even notice it, you know? Yeah. We just went, wow, this lighthouse getting bigger.
Yeah. But it certainly was getting bigger from here on.
Oh, thank you guys.
You called this the judge for fairly obvious reasons. Was it you who coined that, or one of the others?
That was actually Sue. What's interesting as I look at it now, it seemed browner than it was then. I took my shoes off and climbed up barefoot.
I think you're possibly the only one who's done that.
Up as far as I could go, and I thought I'd be able to climb right up just to see what was up in there.
But it doesn't go, presumably.
It doesn't go, not that I think the first time you ever find a new passage is the time that you experience that overarching awe, that sense of, my God, I'm privileged. Nobody in the history of the planet has ever seen this. The first time you do that is the most important, I think. And we were very lucky to do that over and over and over again. And after a while, you do get a little bit classy about it. You know, you go, oh, wow, what have we got around this corner? Oh, that's good. I wonder what's around the next corner. Is it going to be better? You know, and we took an awful lot for granted.
I remember some of the first trips that I did in through top entrance, and you were walking along and sort of just looking at what was around you, and sometimes you've noticed that there were no footprints there.
Yeah.
And they oh yes, okay, so the other first in this bit.
I think it was on the second trip up here that we came around this corner and saw this. We were first calling it Carrick. And you can just imagine how it was. There was no water here at the time. The sea pools of water right now. I remember we said, oh, this would be a great place to camp, wouldn't it? And then a trip or so later, we actually did. We camped in that little corner over there. And drew water from the stream.
Right, that was just you and Sue, was it?
And it was a brilliant move because next morning we were dry, rested, and we could move without any of the preliminaries. Sue and I went up Salubrious previously with the full group. Half the group went out. We were amazed with this sort of white, clayey kind of substance that was on the bottom. The white deposit looked just like lacework. It had been untouched, there were no grooves or pathways through it. And when you stood on it, it just collapsed underneath you. And the lacework broke and the stream started flowing down that way. And gradually, as we worked our way up, all that sort of very fragile, delightful looking thing just completely collapsed into mud. And the stream became completely white. It was like coconut milk. It was quite difficult to walk in because it was really slippery and very fragile. And of course, we were looking for a name for it, and I think it was Susan came up with the idea. This is not very salubrious. Why do we call it Salubrious Passage? And that was a little place down in Swansea that we used to cut through lots of loose boulders that first time. And we came to the chamber which we call the Red Chamber. And again, memory is a little bit hazy, but I think it was either Martin Farr or even Mike Coburn, or maybe Terry, who climbed up that and went across and looked out into a big black space. And we all followed over, and of course that led up into Gnome Passage. And we rushed along Gnome Passage, and that was the end of the trip for that day. We came back down, The main party left and Susan and I camped overnight. The camp. So we went back up to Gnome Passage and we went left in Gnome Passage and we came to the chasm. All these little gnomes that were named by Colin, and I think Bruce was on that trip, Bruce Foster. So this became Gnome Passage. Going back to Dan Rogoff, that was the big competition. Come and find something as big and as spectacular as Dan Rogoff. We said, yeah, we found the big stuff here. And to go up that way, and that's when the big chamber and the entrance potential was discovered. So that's what Susan and I added on as a result of camping, was this part of it up there. Wow, there it is. The big chamber. I think it still looks exactly the same feeling when we first just walked in here, Susan and I, just the two of us. We felt fairly exposed. We were right out on our own. You know, we knew where we were, and a long way from the Cumnor entrance, which is our way out. So I think when we got here, we said we've done enough for this trip. I think we sat for about 10 minutes or so, just trying to get a sense of its size and scale and so on, and all we had were carbide lights. This spot is the memorable one for me. All the other stuff, yes, is fantastic, but I always remember being the first person in here looking at it, realizing its scale. We tried to think of a name for it. The first name that came up was the Vatican. We very quickly nixed that one. We didn't want it to be too Catholic or religious, so it just became the big chamber. And of course, when the entrance was subsequently discovered, and everybody wanted to rename it, we said, no, it's the big chamber near the entrance. So that name seems to have stuck. But we found the Taylor slope coming down, and we saw loads of snails. I think you came with us on the trip that we opened it.
And on the surface there was me, you, Clyde Jones, Rod Stewart.
And the thing that struck me about it was how unprepossessing this spot was.
Yeah.
We'd over there,
That's right,
over
it
there,
was just a grassy bank like the rest of it. No, that alcove just above the entrance. So we started digging down there and then realised we were hitting solid rock.
Yeah.
It came out a bit,
Yeah.
but down.
Yeah.
And the party underneath were digging at the same time, and it was just like a stuff of gravel that was
Stuff
just
that
coming
just-
away and sinking down underneath, and very, very quick processing. Yeah.